Alright, we are back for another Power Rankings video after my home race, the Canadian Grand Prix. I wasn't able to be there this year, but we were still able to make an event out of it and watch. I went to the traveling F1 exhibit that is in my local area, managed to pick up a new hat. Been looking for one of these Pirelli hats for a long time. I've seen them on eBay, but I didn't want to order them off of a sketchy eBay site. But, well, not that eBay's sketchy, but people on there can be sketchy. Yeah, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about some of these guys who are over here. And yeah, let's go into our power rankings. So, as always, we are going to be talking about our drivers who are at the bottoms of the list. I've actually decided to include all 20 drivers, although I've put a couple asterisks next to a couple drivers. You'll see when we get to them, including Leclerc and Albon, because we couldn't really rate their full race performance. And they didn't really take themselves out, where in the likes of someone like Sergio, Logan, and Carlos, they took themselves out of the race. So we are going to be ranking all 20 drivers off of what competitive session information we do have. So that's where I almost feel like the rankings for Leclerc and Albon are kind of difficult to judge. So we completely forgot to talk about Sargent and Perez at the bottom, so I'll talk about them now. Perez, it kind of goes without saying, he has just awful. I said it pre-weekend that Red Bull would be stupid to give him a contract, even a 1-year contract, let alone a 2-year contract. That I did not anticipate. So yeah, Red Bull, what the heck are you doing giving him a contract right now? If he turned it around by more towards the middle of the season, I fully understand where they would have been going. But in his current form, it makes zero sense to be signing Perez on for any longer. Logan Sargent, he just continues to back up the fact that I'm surprised Williams hasn't announced that he will not be returning next season. With how much James Vowles is trying to pursue Carlos Sainz right now, I'm surprised he just hasn't announced that Logan Sargent will not be returning for 2025 at the very least at this point. We're going to go into our next group of drivers at the bottom. We've got the two Haas's, Tsunoda, Sainz, and Zhou. So the two Haas's, I'm a little torn on them because I feel like if they had been given the right strategy at the beginning, they looked amazing on the extreme wet tires at the beginning, but obviously it wasn't the full strategy because they had to box and ended up losing all of the positions that they gained. So it would have been cool to see if they could have done a little bit better if they had been on the right strategy, because I think with all of the chaos that could have happened, I think that the Haas is a car that should have been at least scoring for the bottom end of those points. Like those points that the Alpines got, Alpine should not have scored those points in my opinion. So that's why we will see those drivers ranked pretty highly. Yeah. Yuki Tsunoda, this is a track that, like, all things considered, the RB team was looking very good. They were looking very, very, very good throughout the weekend, and they were looking on for a double points finish, and Yuki threw it away. Plain and simple, Yuki threw it away. Like, I know conditions are tough, but he still did it. He still spun himself out. He nearly took out Hulkenberg with him, but he still did it. That's a bit of a sloppy performance by them. I know it's one bad moment, but that one bad moment is enough to cost multiple points. Carlos Sainz, poor qualifying, worse race, took himself out of the race. It's just a bad look all around. Not a good weekend for Carlos whatsoever, yeah. And Zhou Guanyu, multiple crashes on the weekend, yet oddly enough, not his worst performance. I don't even know where the math came up with that he wasn't rated lower than this. I don't even know. But that's what my math came up to, which I will actually have a reference for at the end of this video. Next grouping of my more or less midfield drivers, this is where we've got Leclerc and Albon. So I have put asterisks next to them, simply because, well, we don't really know. Oscar, I think he had himself a good qualifying, decent race. I think Lando showed that he could have had a little bit of a better race, but all things considered, he basically did about as expected. So I don't think rating him P8 here is a bad thing whatsoever. Lance Stroll, kind of the same idea. I think he did decently well. It's just the fact that Fernando showed that more could have came out of that. Charles, excuse me. Whoa. I don't want to record coughing. That would probably be very loud for you guys. Charles, he looked decent through the practice sessions, but then absolutely bottled it in qualifying, so I can't. It's kind of hard to truly know where to rate him, but that felt appropriate given the math that I did input. Esteban, he managed to get a point. I'm actually kind of surprised I don't have him higher. I think the one thing that really sets him apart, the reason why he's not higher, is percentages of points. Because all things considered, he got 1 point, Gasly got 2 points. Percentage-wise, Gasly literally doubled up on him, and I think that kind of sets Ocon down a little bit. And Alex Albon, he had a good qualifying performance. He was looking good in the race, but I think the one thing that set him lower than some of these other drivers, Ocon scored a point. Leclerc, Albon actually out-qualified Leclerc, so Albon must have just been looking really bad during practice sessions, because I do take those into account. Granted, they're a very minor factor, but I think Leclerc was maybe like the top runner in practice sessions, all things considered, and Albon may have been near the bottom. That's the only thing. That's the only reason why I can justify Albon being at 12 and not higher. Valtteri Bottas, he just had himself a decent little performance. Nothing really to write home about, but he's driving a Sauber and their car is awful, and yeah, there isn't really much more to say about that. Next group of drivers who I think had great performances this weekend. I put Pierre, Daniel, Lewis, George, and Fernando. Fernando had very, very, very quietly a good weekend. All of the weekends before now, I've been preaching the word that Aston has a bad car, but sometimes Alonso makes it look good. I think this is one of those weekends. When I was looking at overall actual lap pace throughout the entirety of the sessions, Fernando was actually very strong. I just think he doesn't really have the car to take him any higher than what he achieved. So I think Fernando actually had an extremely strong weekend. George, he did everything he could have done, in my opinion. I think, well, maybe not everything. I think George could have fought for P2. I think Max finishing in P1 is kind of as expected. I think George could have fought for P2. That's probably the one thing that set him a little bit lower. But as you can see, the difference ratings between him and Alonso, it's actually not that different. They're very, very, very level this weekend, in my opinion. And Lewis Hamilton just a little bit behind him. He was very good as well. It's just he just wasn't as good as George when it came time for the competitive running. Daniel Ricciardo, I think he had himself a very, very good weekend. I think it could have been even better if his team didn't let him down a little bit with a bad pit stop. But this team has regularly let him down. In my opinion, they've given him bad strategies. They've given him bad pit stops. Yeah. I know Ricciardo is fighting for a seat at that RB team, but I think they're also letting him down. And then Pierre Gasly, similar to Alonso, very, very quiet weekend. I don't think I heard about any of the Alpines at all after the press conferences, after all of the drama about Ocon. I don't think I heard at all about the Aston Martins or the Alpines during the race. I don't really remember a moment at all that I can think of. At one point, I think Alonso was battling with Lewis. I don't think I remember hearing anything about any of the other teams, well, about those two teams at all. Outside of Alpine, I remember when Alex did that double overtake on, I think it was Ricciardo and Ocon, I want to say. Yeah. Albon was on his way for a very good race, but I have to put that asterisk next to his name because it was either not rating him at all or just rating him on what information we did have from sessions he completed. So it's kind of very hard to judge. And then, of course, my top two, I put Verstappen number one. Well, it's not even necessarily that I put Verstappen one. The math put Verstappen still number one. This is, to be fair, this is the lowest number one ranking we have had all season. This is the closest together I've had all 20 drivers probably, like by far. Like you can see Perez is way down low, but then like 19 upwards, there's just very small shuffles, very small increments. There isn't really a giant leap between many of the drivers. But so yeah, I think Verstappen was kind of on the back foot all weekend. I legitimately do not think Red Bull had the fastest car this weekend. I think that was Mercedes. But no. It's probably still Red Bull. But still, there was a lot of different things that came into play, and Verstappen managed to come out on top. So it's kind of really hard to take away from that performance. And then Lando, I think he did absolutely everything he could. A little bit of bad luck with the proper safety car timing. I don't think he would have gotten the win, but I think it would have at least given him a better chance of the win. And yeah, Lando did fantastic. I think if we had had mixed conditions during qualifying, like they were reporting during the sessions, he probably would have finished on pole. Like absolutely, I would have like put Norris on pole 1,000%. I texted multiple people that I thought Norris was going to get poled during Q1 when all of the commentary was saying there's going to be rain coming in Q2. I was like, all right, well, Lando's going to be on pole now. Like, yeah. So we're going to go into my driver of the day and etc., my race awards. So driver of the day, I actually put Lando Norris. I think he was just fantastic to watch, made for a lot of entertainment. Worst driver of the day, Sergio Perez. That goes throughout the entire weekend. He was simply awful. Best recovery drive, Daniel Ricciardo. I think he, simply put, there was a lot of people putting some doubts on him again, and he performed and could have done better, and he legitimately had to recover after his team set him back during the race. Driver that over-delivered on this weekend, Pierre Gasly. I don't think that team was expected to score points, and now he's got 3 points on the year. It's looking great for Pierre right now. Driver that is under-delivered, Yuki Tsunoda. I could have handed this to a few drivers. Like I didn't want to give it to Sergio because I'd already given him worst driver of the day. I could have given this one to Nico Hülkenberg because I think he was a driver that was expected to be competing to get into Q3 and the points, and he just simply wasn't there. I think Kevin was probably better than Nico this weekend, but all things considered, the RB team looked competitive this weekend, and Yuki finished, 14th after that incident that he got himself into? So Yuki is my driver who is under-delivered. Then we look at our pre-weekend predictions and compare. We were way off on a lot this weekend. Way off, and I cannot be happier for it. So this is kind of what I predicted, and obviously some of these I was way off on. Looking at Daniel Ricciardo, did way better than expected. Looking at the Ferraris, did way worse than expected. And then Sergio and Hülkenberg, way worse than expected. So outside of that, not too many shuffles. Logan did better than expected. Happy for him on that regard, but then he, of course, ruined it in the race. Multiple times he ruined it in the race, but the one finally actually ended his day. And, of course, we go to our pre-weekend race prediction. I'm only accounting for 15 drivers because I'm not going to account for the drivers that didn't DNF because I don't really have a way to predict that. So, out of the drivers that did finish, some of mine were actually not as bad. Verstappen, Norris 1 and 2. With the drivers that finished, I figured that's not really too shocking. Pre-weekend, I would have put McLaren's dead ahead of Mercedes, so the fact that Russell and Hamilton each moved up a spot and Piastri kind of dropped down, that's a little bit of a bad luck for Piastri. Alonso actually kind of finished almost as expected, but I think this was still a very outstandingly good weekend for Fernando. Stroll did better than expected. Ricciardo did better than expected. Gasly did much better than expected. Same goes for Ocon. Yeah, none of those drivers didn't really get too much attention. Well, Daniel got a lot of attention this weekend, especially after the comments from Villeneuve, which I hate Jacques Villeneuve. I think like everyone does, even Canadians do. I don't get why he is given attention. He just says the stupidest things all the time. Nico was disappointing. Kevin did better than expected. He was fantastic when he was on those extreme wets. Holy crap, that was entertaining. Bottas actually did a little bit worse than expected. I'm not really too upset about that. I mean, he's still driving a Sauber, but he still managed to have at least finished ahead of Sonoda, so that's something. Sonoda way off from where he would have expected to be. I think that's kind of why I put him as my driver that under delivered on the weekend, and then Joe at the bottom. But I don't think that's really too surprising. I think Joe's got decent race pace. I don't even know what happened, but I just noticed after one of the safety cars, I was like, wait, he's already a lap down? When did that happen? I don't know, maybe he had some bad luck. And then for my prediction accuracy, apparently I actually did better than Monaco. I don't really know how. I feel like I was way off, but better than Monaco and better than Miami still. And for my references, if people do want to take a peek into how I came up with some of these ratings, I got this little chart here that people can hit pause on and take a look things over, and it comes up. It shows like the rankings and ratings, etc. How we generate some of that information to get to those numbers. And yeah, that is going to wrap things off. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in Spain. Take care.